if you, when you speak, if you can please remind us who you are and the agency you represent. And then all of us that are here, let's just remember to turn our microphone as we're speaking. Since we do have a member in the audience, if anybody that wants to speak, there's public comment cards available. If you want to make a comment, and also all of us make sure that are here, make sure that we validate our parking ticket before we leave. First item is call to the audience. This is an opportunity for the public to make comments on items that fall under the max jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, informational items, or items that are not for discussions. I haven't received any requests. Gordon, was there any requests?
No.
All right. No requests are level. We'll jump into the next item. Approval of the June 3rd meeting minutes. All the meeting package was sent out last week. I'm hoping everybody had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes. And as Gordon's walking through it, I'll just open it up to see if anybody has any comment or any correction that may not have made it into the meeting minutes. All right, if not, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Mr. Chair, I motion to approve the meeting minutes as written.
All right, thank you, Gene.
This is Warren. I would second that.
Thank you, Warren. I guess with that, we'll go into the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. We'll run down the list, starting with ADOT.
Yes, this is Mike from ADOT.
Avondale. Buckeye.
Good afternoon. This is Josh Ford. Yes.
Chandler.
Yes.
El Mirage. Lawrence. Gilbert.
Yes.
Glendale.
Yes.
Goodyear.
Yes.
Maricopa County.
Yes.
Mesa.
Yes.
Peoria.
Yes.
Phoenix.
Yes.
Scottsdale.
Yes.
Surprise.
Yes.
Tempe.
Yes.
Tolleson. Youngtown. Looks like the motion passes unanimously.
Thanks, everyone. We'll jump in right into our case workload because it is quite extensive for this meeting. Jumping right into case 2601, miscellaneous corrections. There has been 3 additions to the case. I'll go through the first one. Item D is a modification or a correction to section 211.4. It has to do with relations to testing and making sure that the rock correction test method is correctly referencing AASHTO T99 Annex A. That reference to Annex A was missing or is missing in the current specification. And item E on this case is also the same thing, but that is under section 310.3. The rock correction also requires that reference to Annex A on the AASHTO T99 test method. And then finally, I believe Marty with Maricopa County pointed out misspelling in standard detail 503, misspelling the gauge call out for the lid, as Gordon is showing. I don't know how long that's been around.
forever.
And I'm pretty sure it's not the only one either. Um, does anyone have any questions or comments on this miscellaneous corrections? All right. Again, I believe, Gordon, if I'm not mistaken, the miscellaneous correction still stays open till we're done for the year?
That's right. You can continue to add to it and it'll be voted on it during the last meeting.
So if there's another misspelling of Gage out there, feel free to point it out. All right, we'll move on to the next case, 2603, revisions to curb and gutter details to 20. Gene?
Thank you, Jose. There hasn't been any changes to this since the last meeting, other than presenting this in CAD with a clean version. One thing I did notice, and I wanted to talk to, I haven't had a chance to connect with industry about, was after drafting the new CAD up with the CAD updates in there that we all kind of agreed upon, the cold joint, reference of cold joint there for rolled curb and gutter type C and type D. I'm not sure if that's going to, that was always there, but I'm not sure if it's going to cause a conflict with the field construction when they place concrete monolithically with the sidewalk, like they do in a lot of housing developments. That might throw a wrench in the party for those guys out in the field, depending on the inspector that they have. So I'd like to get a little feedback from industry or from others, really from any committee members, on whether we should keep that cold joint reference in there or not. Do we have Brian Gallimore online?
I believe so. Not sure if he can hear us. Hey, Brian, can you hear us at all? Oh, maybe you're not.
Hey, Gene, what's your concern again with the monolithic pour? Because I know there's a different detail for that, right? 221?
Oh, is it 221? Well, thank you for
Yeah.
pointing it out. So then this would be just for formwork then, and not
Yeah,
or machine without monolithic.
yeah, there's a detail 221 for mono.
Thank you, George. I appreciate that.
You bet.
So
So Gene, are you or the committee, the MAG committee, are they changing any of the dimensions to this, or is this just, are you just changing the cold joint? What are,
now, so there's a whole list. You can go back and you can see all the changes made on the cover sheet there, but there is no dimensional, no technical changes per se.
oh, perfect.
It was, yeah, so the I guess forms or nothing will change there. It's
Yeah.
just to clarify the way it was drawn before with the height specific to type A. The height for the face of curb was drawn on the far right of the schematic or illustration there, and it was throwing a loop for designers thinking, what is that measurement? Because that horizontal plane reference line kind of left that 1 inch gap there, and we did not have that identified as 1 inch. So you lift the front of the curb up an inch. Well, naturally the gutter pan's going to come up an inch where it meets the asphalt, vertically. So there was a lot of confusion with that. You can go through and look through the changes that were made on each date. I have on the cover sheet there, but to your question, to answer it directly, no technical measurements have changed. So,
Okay, so we're not having to retool then. We can
No.
still, the mold, okay, same dimensions, okay.
and
Perfect.
after opening up type A, that's when the whole group, the committee, the chair, all the committee members realized that we had kind of the same problem going across all of the details. So we moved that back of curb measurement to the back of curb and just cleaned up the visual aesthetics of it.
Gotcha.
So, Mr. Chair, this one was up for possible action.
The only thing I would like to just point out, Jim, before we go into
Okay.
potential vote, do you mind, Gordon, pulling out the current detail? And the reason I was looking at that if I'm correct, on the current detail, there's a couple of dashed lines on the road curve detail that kind of represent the sidewalk. And I think
Right.
that went along with the cold joint reference. But they're not showing on the current version, so I don't know if they were not drawn or they're not being.
So that was,
Turn on.
that was the question at the last meeting, when I was chairing in your absence.
Okay.
Was, do we want to remove the reference to the sidewalk? And really the consensus was yes, unless we're gonna draw it in there properly. Well, actually the consensus was yes.
Okay.
But my attitude is if we're gonna put it there and I'm fine either way, just needs to be drawn in correctly, and then
That's not an ADA slope.
yeah, I don't think ADA there. Not only that, but we have a section for sidewalks, so a lot of times it's, you have detached sidewalks.
Correct.
So really, I think it's a moot point. I don't even think it needs to be in there. in my
Okay, no,
opinion.
then if it was discussed, then yeah, I'm okay with it. So you do bring it up. Does anybody else have any other comments or question on this case? I know we've been going back and forth quite a bit on this one. If no one has any other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, being my case, I will, motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, we'll go to a vote.
Let's go ahead and run through again, starting with ADOT.
Yes.
So this is 2603, approval to revise the curb ramp details 220-1 and 220-2 as presented. Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage, Lawrence, Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Yes.
Goodyear,
Yes.
Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes.
Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes.
Youngtown. Thank you. It looks like the motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you all, and thank you, Jim, for this case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to case 2604. Revise section 622 to include centrifugally cast fiberglass reinforced polymer mortar pipe casing. Being presented by Arvid. I think in our packets, I guess I want to thank you, Jim, for a very thorough review of the specifications, I guess. I myself have not been able to see all your comments, but
Mr. Chair, that was every night for a week straight, and I would not have been interested in it if I didn't have an active project
then
doing.
you were probably
boring
one of the
right
perfect members to be reviewing this case.
Yeah.
Arvid, I'll open it up to you if you can give us an update.
Yes, sir. Yeah, first of all, thank you, Gene. This is actually what someone who's been a part of this committee for a very long time that's in the industry really appreciates, is when agency takes a lot of interest in it, because we want to get it to the place that, like Gene mentioned, it's not something you guys do day in, day out. And when you come across the need of it, you want to make sure you fully are comfortable with the way it's written and the way it reads. So Gene, great job. Really what has taken place is Gene has gone through it and just modernized it. And specifically down in the area that we were focusing on, which is down in the carrier pipe installation procedure. He got really dialed in on the flush bell. Again, what this was driven by at the beginning was needing to get agency and the industry on the same page with understanding that casing spacers are not a preferred installation method for gravity feed applications of sewer, particularly because of the reality that you can't order those spacers until the casing is parked. And with lead times ranging out as far as 12 weeks, you don't want to be having a bore pit open, unutilized for 3 months, waiting for spacers to show up. And as we are moving more into sustainable sewer line products, such as are listed there, the PVCs, the HDPEs, and the FRPs, they all come in flush bell configurations, which allow for the carrier pipe to be installed through a casing on either a rail system or wood skids, and then fill the casing with pea gravel. If a belled product is used, you typically would then, as it states there, default to the wood skids method. Or if you're so choosing to wait for the spacers, that's a choice that's also there. And Gene did a good job of explaining and just at least stating the reality that there is a time constraint there. I might be good to go to the clean version and let it be read and seen on the screen there, Gordon. And then Gene, do you want to take the helm and add anything in addition to what I've said?
Yeah, thank you, Arvid. I had basically wanted to get with the committee, Mr. Chair, on the 602.4 measurement and payment. I moved in on the clean version. I kind of moved in with bullet points, and I just want to be able to follow the publication's layout. So really that's what I'm going to ask the committee to obviously look at the whole case, but also pay attention to the way it's structured and laid out and make sure that it's consistent across the board with the rest of the publication. I had a hard time reading that 602.4 because it was so jumbled up that by the time I got done with one sentence, focusing on the next sentence, I forgot what I was supposed to check on the first one. So I just put it in bullet points. That way you can go through the list of payment items.
You're talking about 602.6, Gene, right?
0.6, I'm sorry. Yeah, 602.
Okay.
And just to clarify your intent, Jen, you didn't make any intentional changes, you just rewording.
I did. I just reworded it, and I had Arvid proof it twice. I think the second proof, Arvid, did you get through the whole clean document?
I did, and I have 3 things that I think we can either talk about this month while the committee reviews it, because it's obviously going to need to take a little bit of time to be looked at, or we can, I don't know if we want to take time to do it now. I think it might be better for you and I to talk first, and then we can present it to the working group or just to the committee next week or next month.
Yeah, in the sake of time, I think that's probably the best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like quick reference, but if it's in-depth discussion, it's probably best handled at the working group.
Yes.
That'll give a couple more other members that attend that working group to review the case.
Okay, sounds good. I'll bring that up at the working group and talk to Gene offline. But overall, I'm very grateful and thankful for the help and the involvement. And I think it's a much more modern, updated spec and definitely standard that by which is going to be able to help the industry as a whole.
I think the fresh set of eyes and then having a current project. I mean, I haven't seen pipe push since I was with Jose on Northern Parkway in 06, so it's been a minute.
It's been a while, yeah.
And that's such a great point, Gene, because that's what happens is it's not as if every day you're encountering a trenchless application. It might be 5-6 years between them, and it just gets forgotten.
Yeah, thanks for spearheading it, Arvid, and I'll work with you anytime.
All right. That's all I've got.
Mr. Chairman? I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure that the wording is intended the way it's shown. I'm looking at the clear version. 602.5, carrier pipe installation under gravity carrier pipes, flush bell pipes, second line, the word may is used. And is that intentional to have the word may instead of shall?
Well, I'll let, Arvid comment on that because I can go back and forth with may and shall all day.
So May, you
It's time,
can't
yeah.
enforce may. There's nothing to enforce with a may, so.
Yeah, I
Need to
think
have our lawyer here.
if that's the direction, then shall may be a better, a more appropriate word.
You're wanting it to be installed either on rail systems or wood skids, correct? Is that right?
Right.
Reading it?
That's the preferred, yes. That would be the preferred for that to be, these two methods would be the preferred way to install a flush bell through a casing because it allows you to dial in line and grade accuracy and do it in a very timely manner. It's the whole issue that, as you can see written down there on the last sentence of belled pipe, where Gene came up with a good sentence with regards to grade spacers and the procurement lead time. That's what's really affecting industry is again, and it's not being understood how big a deal that is until, of course, the project launches, and then it takes a long amount of time for people to get their head wrapped around the reality that they got to resequence the job to allow time for spacers to arrive.
Well, and that's understandable, but maybe you need that because the word may, I'm not sure what anybody does with that in the field if I'm an inspector.
No, I think it probably worth on discussion on the working group as to whether maybe the word you just use, Arvid, is the spec should read that it's allowed to be installed on either system,
Yeah,
not necessarily
yeah,
that it
yeah.
could. And ideally, whether or not that's gonna be left up to the contractor or if it's gonna be dictated on the plans. I don't
Typically,
know.
yeah, typically the engineer of record will have detailed out a page or have a detail on the plan set indicating their method of installation that they've designed. And that's, of course, then what the job is typically bid to and not always built to, but at least bid to until discussions are had. But again, the may and the shall, I think we'll talk about that. And I understand both sides of it. And like Gene said, I'll leave that up to more you all to make a decision what you think that should read as.
Yeah, I mean, just exactly what you just said. You could say shall be installed on rail systems, wood skids to pertain alignment unless otherwise shown on the plans.
Yeah, we can certainly incorporate something like that.
Yeah.
I noted it. We'll float it with the
Yeah.
working group, Arvid.
Okay,
I just
thank
went
you.
800-page, 2-volume manual of practice looking for all the mays and shalls, so.
Yeah,
hit
and
my
my
head right
challenge
now.
is I can't get 5 people to agree on what color the sky is, let alone may or shall. So
May, shall, will.
And should,
we'll get through it.
and must.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Mike Jones Jr. So we talked about this, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, I think when Arvid first brought it up. And the times out in the field when we actually prefer to use casing spacers is if we're doing an open cut installation of a casing. And then we know the casing is on exact line and grade. And that's where the confusion comes in with designers is they read through that for, directional drills and stuff. And the very first option is casing spacers. So that's how they spec the job out. And then Arvid and the other companies that do that type of work are submitting the RFI. So I think we were still going to allow the use of spacers, but it was going to be in its own section.
And we can absolutely bring that into the equation, Mike, whenever we meet at the next working group, because that is a good point. Maybe there should be a specific paragraph just on spacers to have some more clarification as to where they're ideally meant to be used.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be some verbiage pertaining to what your comment was that I agree 100% with is, when you're pushing the casing through, you've got those deflections in line and grade. And so then they would have to be custom ordered. And there is that 12-week delay, if not more. And I thought that was all going to be part of its own paragraph. Just to explain to the designers why.
Sure. Yeah, I think Gene, you and I need to talk about that a little bit then. And then maybe even include Mike on that, because again, that is really a big aspect that as we expand this, we need to have more discussion on it.
Okay. Yep, I made a note of it.
All right. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Mike. Moving along into case 2606. Changes or new detail 160-1 indexes 160-2 for chain link fence and gates. Marty, can you give us an update on this case?
This is Marty from McDott, Maricopa County. I don't have an update for this case. I know people is gonna have an opportunity to take a look at it, see if they have any questions. So if there's any questions, if I can answer or not. No, it's
Okay, thanks, Marty. And I see that the last update for this case was back in May. I think we've all had a good opportunity. This is a minor change. I think it's been discussed. Does anybody have any comment or remaining question on it?
Mr. Chair, we did discuss it quite a bit at the last meeting. In my opinion, it's ready to go.
So with that, is there a motion to approve?
yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Marty Robbins from McDott. I'd like to make a motion to approve this case as shown.
Thank you, Marty. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you, Gene. Okay. We'll go ahead and vote, take a vote.
Okay, this is case 2601, which is creating a detail for the chain link fence without the barbed wire and renumbering the existing one. So ADOT,
Yes.
Avondale, Avondale, Buckeye,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage, Lawrence, Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Yes.
Goodyear,
Yes.
Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes.
Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
MP, Tempe,
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I
said yes. I didn't realize I was muted.
thank you. Tolleson and Youngtown are not present. Avondale, Jim, are you there?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you. Chugging right along. Our next case is 26-07. Updating street signing detail 131, 131-2, and 131-3. Warren, can you give us a brief update on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have not made any updates since this May packet. I know we did talk about it in the working group, and I've received some feedback from Gene on the U channel and from Jose on the round post that we can talk about. But it seemed that I wanted to talk a little more with this committee. That one pathway would be that we just decided to only have the square post. Obviously the predominant standard in all of our agency details, and then potentially remove the U channel and the round post and possibly put that in outside a right of way. And I'm okay with either way. I've spoken with our sign shop, but their feedback has always been they use the predominantly the square, but there are instances where they still use the others, and we still have those others types of posts out there. And And, you know, when they do replacements or a new CIP project, they do swap them out in favor of the square post, but so yeah, before I did anything on that, I thought I'd just regroup with you all and get some feedback on where I should go with this. And like I said, as it stands now, we can leave everything in as is. And then if others are using these and these other types of posts and I've even seen the U channel used with some almost breakaway looking base. I was up on one of the mountain roads outside of Payson, and I noticed that. But I have not explored it beyond that. It just seems, like I said, based on what everyone's using, is the MUTCD seems to be geared towards that square post as the breakaway standard. So, but as far as feedback I did get from Jose is the round post having some pre-drilled requirements, and yeah, that can definitely be added on there. And then still needs to do some work on the different sign mounting options for those type A's and type B's on that page 3. And then updating the titles on the pages. Yeah, that makes sense. So I can do all that. But yeah, I just wanted to get some feedback from everyone. Do you think we should just keep it as is and keep all of the types as shown, or do you think we should go with the square post only?
So, Mr. Chair, I can't speak for everybody, but for Glendale, we're square post. And this detail satisfies our needs. I'd shared all of our details with Warren, worked through it. But to kind of try to look at other people's details, I don't know who wants to have what. I do know Maricopa County is still using that U channel type A. Those are those pictures that I had sent you, Warren. Now, whether or not it meets the MUTCD or not, I haven't dove that far into it. Warren, it sounds like Warren has, but like I said, our needs are covered by some of the stuff that's in this detail.
Yeah. I will add to the conversation, Gene, that, you know, for Phoenix, I did check with our sign shop as well, and there's still a need or use for the U channel as well for their purposes, primarily also the round post, and they also use the square tail spar approach. So they do all three. It may be that we need to consider, and one thing that I was keeping in mind is, in order to get rid of our supplemental details, it'd be ideal that this detail, the MAC detail, cover all cases. Warren, the only thing I can think of is the final post selection will be subject to agency requirement, and at least the information for all the detail on all the posts is there. It's just each agency decides to use it a little bit different. But yeah, I guess that's part of the challenge when we're trying to make an all-inclusive detail.
Right. No, and that's the ultimate goal, is to allow that ability to reduce supplements. Then that would make sense as this first step to get everything on here, and then we can always take it off later if that becomes the one standard.
I would be in support of that. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any conversations with their signing staff or any thoughts on the top of their head?
I do like your note, Mr. Chair, about ad agency's approval.
Yeah, that's a good catch-all for when we have multiple options.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to possibly say agency approval when used in right of way? It seems like that's the problem. That it contradicts other standards if used in right. Or am I not hearing this right?
No, I think it's just the concern that Jane is kind of leading up to is MUTCD may have certain requirements as far as base height, making sure a vehicle can go over it, have a breakaway requirement.
And we want to be careful, Mr. Chair, of overstepping those boundaries with the NUCC.
Correct.
But that's primarily in right of way.
This is
The standard is for in right of way.
Yeah, I guess that the way I'm interpreting that this is a right of way detail, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it ends up being applying private property, that's
Well, I'm thinking parks,
Okay.
Agency owned facilities that are not in the right of way. Does it? I think
okay.
most of these would apply for that situation.
Yes.
I've never seen breakaway in parking lots. So just a thought that, and it's only because the reference was made, do we move the first sheet to outside right away to be more applicable and then reference back to it? There's options to do that. Or in the future, you could even do that. If this goes a year or so, it looks like you may want to do that, then it just would need to be renumbered, put in the outside right away.
Okay. I think the current approach you have, Warren, is kind of capturing all the information. Is heading in the right direction, right? And maybe as more agencies are giving you input, we can then have a better handle on what that detail is starting to look like, and maybe if there is a need to move some item onto the outside of right away details. Jim, I saw you turn your camera on. Were you gonna comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, could you go, Gordon, could you go back to the detail D or to the type D? So that in Avondale, we use that. I liked what we're doing there because preferably we don't like to use concrete because it hinders replacement, because then you got to end up digging out the big base, and we always have contractors putting it in when they shouldn't be putting it in. So I think we talked about that where soil conditions dictate Class C may be required, see note 3. So I like what we're doing there. Again, the agency should make that determination, I guess. But some soils, you don't need the concrete, but if you're in sandy soil, obviously you're probably going to need a concrete base for that type D. So
Right, Jim. Mm-hmm.
But in most cases, we have really good luck with the no concrete. It's easy to our crews that replace it just like it, because if there's old concrete base in there, then you got to dig it out. It really hinders and takes forever to replace the sign. Or this way, you just punch it and go. So I like that we have that option in there. So.
And that's what I've heard as well. The preference is obviously just to punch it and go, but there may be those few instances where it doesn't work and the concrete is the option.
So anyways, all right, thank you.
All right. Is there anybody else that has a comment or question for Warren on this case? Okay, yeah, as the case goes, or in the next couple of weeks, Warren, we can touch bases on some of the comments and see what I hear back from our planning staff as well.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to please talk to their sign shops and see if there's any strong feeling one way or the other, if we should be potentially moving them outside of the right of way or not, or keeping them at this as a first step kind of thing. So yeah, please share that feedback.
All right, thank you. Moving on to case number 9, revised section 632 and detail 399 for tracer wire installation. Warren, I believe this is also your case.
All right. Unfortunately, not a lot to report. We still have not had a chance to get the details drafted up. So the last update is on the spec. And we very briefly looked at it in water and sewer. It felt like it was better to wait until we had a little more to talk about, since there are other more pertinent items on the water and sewer to look at. So don't have any feedback or any comments to share today, but really like to get those details for the August meeting. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thanks for the update, Warren. We look forward to the updated details. And yeah, if anybody that has, or any agency that's also implemented this or started to implement this, I think Warren asked last time, any lessons learned? Perfect timing to be sharing those right now.
Thank you.
Case 2609, revised section 631, water tap and meter connections for PEX A pipe. Looks like last month there was an update, Warren.
Correct. I did do an update based on some discussion at water and sewer and a typo that I had had. So what's shown here highlighted is new from the previous draft version, adding in the requirement just to draw attention for service line connections that if you scroll down a little bit, Gordon, the water service connections must be locatable. They're not saying it has to be tracer wire, but it has to be approved by the contracting agency. So we haven't had a chance to talk about that at water and sewer since it's new, but that's the latest draft. And then down below, I'm just fixing some typos in the section numbers. I haven't received any comments yet on this, but so this is where it's at.
Anyone has a comment or question on this particular case?
Did you want to take a look at the wording I added for the tracer wire? I'm sorry, for the locatable. Scroll up a little bit, sorry. Maybe just read that language real quick and see what everyone thinks about it.
Yeah,
Right there, yeah. How does that sound?
Yeah, it looks okay to me.
Yeah, I don't have any comments on the language. Anybody else has a comment? No?
I noticed I use the word must sometimes where a lot of cases we're saying shall in MAG. Do you think we should be consistent between the must and the shalls, or is that?
How much time do you have?
Yeah.
We must may versus.
Our attorney, I don't know if I've shared with everyone, but we went through all of our manuals and changed every shall to must. So therefore I've been reprogrammed.
Yeah, no.
Must is acceptable.
Hopefully you don't change attorneys in the near future and change something else. Yeah, no, I think it's in line with the rest of the manual, right? I don't know that the manual itself is consistent on the use of must or shall. So, although I think I tend to see more shall than anything else, but
Yeah. All right.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any objections. As written. One way or the other, I'm good either way.
it is just a reminder it is state law, right? So,
Yeah, it's a.
all right.
Thank you.
Warren. All right, case 26-10, revised section 757, for references to filter fabric. Peter, can you give us an update?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We, instead of putting this as a miscellaneous case as was discussed in the last meeting, this was put in as a case because it was a change from the type of material that was being specified. The reason it had to be revised was initially because of the ASTM requirements that were shown in the standard weren't correct. We initially were going to just call out the similar ones, but after discussion with the landscape architect folks, they felt that they thought that table 796-2 was the more appropriate one for just a separation fabric. So trying to just get rid of a lot of stuff that really was maybe or maybe not applicable, we just simplified it down to saying valve box material shall be heat filtration fabric and referencing now 796 in the table. So it's really a simplification.
And just remind me, Peter, 796 is just your regular
Land.
separation.
796 is our
Not
geotextile.
erosion, okay.
796 is the geotextile specification. We have somebody who is reviewing the entire spec, and next year we'll be proposing changes to that.
Okay,
But in the meantime, that section still is applicable.
okay.
And after review by two landscape architects involved with it, they thought that material was fine.
No, and I like and appreciate the fact that you're writing it in a way that if we have to update 796, then this is taken care of.
So, yeah, that's the idea is always try to make it to where you only make one change once, and not have duplications. We do have one other item that came up just yesterday that we'd like to add to the case. And it's not shown here, it didn't get in the book, and it's an email I sent after somebody brought this up to me literally in another venue, looking at the exact same information and realizing that ASTM in June of this year changed their language. You can see the language at the bottom. I'm sure it blows up. That prior to this, D4833 had been used for basically all geomaterials. A section or a standard D6241 had been created a few years ago that focused on geotextiles, which is what we're talking about here. Well, as of June this month, or last month now, ASTM said, well, let's have all geotextiles just reference D6241 and reserve D4833 for geomembranes. So it literally happened this past month. We caught it on another job and thought, let's just throw this in too. It's really could have maybe called it a miscellaneous change because the specification ASTM changed what it was applicable for. So the idea was that we can add, and I'll have to write some language. Well, actually, we don't have to write language. All we're going to do is change tables 796.2 and 796.3 to reference for puncture testing. And I don't have the table showing to reference the correct ASTM now.
The only question I would have, and I don't know if you looked into it, Peter, for D6241, are the test results reported in the same units and measurements?
I will check that to make
Yeah,
sure. Just like I said,
So that the valley, whether
we're
or not the
about
valley
24
is
hours
the
away from when I found this.
same. Okay.
Not even less than 24. So I will go and check units.
And I sure hope, I don't know if the people that you're working with, the landscape architects, know if the industry is also gonna be the changes. The only thing that worries me on something like this so recent that
Well,
our
that's
spec may be calling out a test method that all their documentation and literature is still not updated.
yeah, I know. Well,
I'm just
AASHTO,
thinking
the thing
correct-
was, it looks like AASHTO caught this a couple of years ago. And so they made the change, and AASHTO's referencing D6241. They have been doing it for a few years. ASTM, being in the ASTM process is slow. So it looks like they slowly made that change and just adopted it this last month. So I'll go back and check the units. I'll verify back and forth. We realistically cannot use D4833 anymore. They took out the stuff that was referencing geotextile. So it's wrong to use that one, but I'll verify that we have sufficient information in 6241. We thought to throw it in this case as kind of a catch-all because it could be considered a blooper, but maybe it's a little bit more than that. We weren't sure, so Gordon and I talked about that. Well, let's throw it in this case too.
It's tied together, so.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we need revisions to a good review of 796.
Okay.
We were hoping to get that done this year, but it just time-wise didn't work out. But we will have the whole thing reviewed. So wanted to catch one. So I'll go ahead and look back at that one and verify we're dealing with the same units. And if I need to make any changes, I'll report back next month.
All right, thank you, Peter.
Mhm.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Peter on this particular case? If not, all right.
Good catch.
Hi, Warren, did you mean to make a comment?
No, I was just saying it was a good catch, Peter. Thank you.
Credit some other person who put it in front of my face after I wrote the wrong one down. So good to have people reviewing your work.
We'll move on to the next case, 26 dash 11. this is making a change across multiple specifications related to compaction requirements and now requiring that compaction be achieved within a certain amount of optimum moisture content. I'm presenting this case. The background for it is that currently in the city of Phoenix, we do have a supplement where all the compaction specifications have to be achieved within plus or minus 2% of optimum moisture content. This is something the city of Phoenix has adopted over multiple years. I really don't know exactly how far this goes, but it goes quite a bit from what people have told me. And in an effort to simplify our supplements, we wanted to bring this up to the main MAG to see if we can also incorporate this requirement into it. What I did is I went through the different specifications where it calls out a minimum compaction effort and added the language that compaction be achieved within plus or minus 2% of the optimum moisture content. There were a couple of specifications that already had a reference to the requirement of moisture. We just made everything consistent to be 2%. I think there was one other case that was recently adopted that allowed plus or minus 3%, but that way it's consistent across the board.
And Mr. Chair, this is plus or minus 2% of a laboratory compacted specimen, right?
Correct. This is plus or minus 2% of the
Is that a
the Proctor optimum moisture content.
which is that a 698 Proctor, I would assume?
Yeah, whatever is the test method specified on the compaction effort, but I believe yes.
And the only reason why I ask is because Glendale for the longest time, since the beginning of time, was +2 -4, but it was a 1557, which is twice as heavy of a hammer and 5 lifts. I think it's 5 lifts versus 3. So there's a lot more effort going into it, but with the 698, I think plus or minus 2% would be appropriate.
Yes, I'd be lying to you if I recall every single test method called that. I think consistent, pretty much most of the specifications call that ASTM D638.
Oh, there it is right there under 211.4 tests. It is a, oh, wait, no, that's ASTM 6938.
6938.
So that's the in the field testing. That's
Yeah.
not the laboratory. Okay, that's
Right.
not the laboratory compacted specimen.
Yeah, this is field compaction requirement.
Okay, so but when you take a test in the field, you're comparing it to a laboratory compacted specimen. You're saying that the percent compaction needs to be plus or minus 2% of the laboratory?
No.
Okay.
The compaction requirement stays the same, right? So if it requires 95% of the Proctor,
Yep.
right? The only thing this is adding is that compaction effort we achieve while the material is within optimum moisture content, plus or minus 2% of the moisture content.
Of the moisture content for the Proctor.
For the Proctor, yes.
Okay. Which we haven't determined what the Proctor, we assume it's a 698, right? For the laboratory compacted specimen, Proctor.
Yes.
Some of these don't define which test method.
Well, that's what I'm having trouble finding.
Yeah.
So are you, when you're asking, I'm trying to find out exactly.
I'm in support of the
No,
plus
no,
or minus
yes.
2%, unless it's a heavier Proctor, like a 1557, where you have a lot more effort going into it. Well, even then, I
Again,
may still be.
It's not changing the value of the Proctor you're getting, right? It's just making sure that because technically, right, you can achieve compaction with little moisture content, right? You just need more compactive effort. You're
Right.
still gonna hit your 90, 95, whatever it is. This is just saying that compaction effort needs to be while the material is close to optimum moisture.
Yeah, within plus or minus 2% of optimum. Okay.
It's interesting. These sections don't define which method until, well,
Yeah,
there's a
which-
test, there's a section that says test method. It's got,
Mr. Chair, is that just to help contractors achieve compaction, or is there some performance related concern with being over or under and getting compaction?
From my point of view, I think you would have shrink swell potential, depending on that moisture content. I'm sure Peter could probably chime in on more. of that.
yeah, you have to,
Jeep Tech
and-
guy.
and-
No, so this is really intended to make sure that there is moisture being added to during compaction, right? I will tell you that in practice, we just want to make sure that there's adequate moisture and the material is being manipulated correctly, right? Because again, you could potentially achieve compaction with relatively low moisture content. But that becomes an issue, and then it becomes a concern whether that compaction is uniform throughout the case. So, but I will tell you that I do not know why we pick plus or minus 2%.
that's not an unusual range.
It's not, but because when you start getting above 2%, you start pumping. You have the potential to.
Yeah.
You can start pumping as you start increasing that water percent.
Simultaneously, some specs have a 0 and a plus, depending if you have a soil that has swell potential.
Right.
And sometimes you don't want it to be under optimum. But that you have the clause in here that says unless otherwise specified, and that would be an exception circumstance. This is for standard work. as I
Yeah, this is
understand it.
standard work. Most of the times for swelling soils, like you're mentioning, you want to be compacting on the west side of optimum.
Yes, or you're gonna be lifting sidewalk
Yes.
when the irrigation flows, when they do the planned establishment period.
So as long as we're talking, as long as that term is in there unless otherwise specified, or provided special provisions, we're in good shape on these. And that there's a test section that identifies which test we're talking about, which that's what threw me off at first. I'm going through saying, where's the test? Well, it's under tests. Well, then we're fine.
In either case, the density would have, or the point you're measuring to would have already been determined by some established previous method. This is just adding that moisture requirement
Yeah.
to it as well.
Yeah, this is saying that you have a density to be achieved. And when you achieve that density, moisture has to be within this range. So when they do the nuke test on it, they'll get a density and they'll get a moisture content. You look at what usually it's a lab density test.
Or a 1 point,
Or possibly a 1 point, yeah. And that would then say you should be having 10% moisture. So it shows up at 8.8, you're going great. You're where you need to be.
Yeah, your section 340 for concrete curb gutter for your flat work does reference ASTM D698 as the proctor. But I was just surprised that I couldn't find it in that
Would have
section.
to go back if you're actually making sure whether or not our specifications are actually calling out the test method to develop the proctor. I'm trying to circle back as I was working on this, and I don't know that.
Well, I guess
It-
my point,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you
Yeah.
off. My point is, if I go out in the field and I'm told that this material has a dry density of such and such, and the optimum moisture content is such and such, and I perform either a sand cone or in-place moisture density with a gauge, I'm gonna be hitting plus or minus 2% of that laboratory
Mhm.
compacted specimen. And what is that? Is that a 698, which I assume? it
Yeah,
is?
I think this needs to be reviewed just to make sure. And that it has nothing to do with your case,
Yeah.
but
No.
is that being covered effectively to where it
Yeah,
identifies?
let me
the
take a look
standard?
at that.
Yeah,
Gene.
I'm just not
Because
so
you
familiar.
bring up a good point.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with it because we always had our own, when I was in the materials business with Glendale, we always had our own supplement, which was the 1557, more of a
Mhm.
modified,
Yeah.
heavier proctor.
Yep. I seen reference to the specifications to the standard or modified proctor in here, but not adequately addressed to the test method.
Well, is it a modified proctor meaning rock correction modified, or is it actually a heavier
Heavier
hammer,
hammer.
bigger mold?
That's what it reads, the heavier hammer.
Okay, gotcha. I think we just need
and
to.
more lifts.
I think we just need to reevaluate, just make sure that we're encompassing everything. If we're gonna change a case, we might as well make it complete, right?
I understood. It's in line with the case. So,
Chair, I have a question.
yes.
I notice some places it's replacing 90% with 95%. Is that, again, one of your supplements, or do you want 95%
Let me-
consistently throughout the entire book?
Let
or-
me circle back with that, Gordon. I might have been a copy and paste mistake. Sorry for that, and let me look into that.
Yeah, I think Phoenix maybe has 95% as their standard, but there are some places in MAG where it's 90%. And even on this page, I noticed next to the first red mark, it's 90%, which wasn't changed. So I'm not sure what the difference is.
Jose, what's the current City of Phoenix supplement? Is it still, what year is it? Is it 2015 that has the 100% compaction for arterial roads for subgrade?
Yeah, to answer your question, it's a convoluted answer. We follow the 2023 specifications and a 2024 supplemental details. It is hopefully cleaned up by the end of this year. But yeah,
But right now, isn't it still the 2015,
no,
the
it
published spec?
was a new supplemental specifications and details that were issued last year.
Okay,
As of January 31st, 2026, everything is moving up to that new supplement. So,
okay.
yeah, it gets really hard to keep track, even for me. Alright, and this is the first time we're sharing the case, so obviously a lot of it is new. But does anybody have any comments or concerns with the approach? Or at least the idea of adding this into the specifications?
And you've also got the rock corrections in here too.
Yeah,
Referencing Annex
yeah,
A.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's a slam dunk.
we were using the same Word file for the miscellaneous corrections and the.
Yeah, okay, you've got that in here there too. Okay.
So from a contractor's view, if you want it, I think it's fine for the section 300. I just think touching the other sections could be a problem.
Which sections do you have concerns on, George?
Well, I mean, you have I think you have section 211.
Mhm.
And then you get into, I believe, some of 600. I mean, those specs, those percentages of compaction have been in there forever.
No. So the intent, George, and I'll go back, we're not changing the compaction effort we're not required to meet. We're just making sure that there's moisture in the material as you're compacting it, right? I will
Okay.
say 600 is the meat and potatoes because that's the trench backfill requirements,
Yeah.
probably where it's gonna be more applicable. And
Okay,
someone,
so you're more just, you want the plus or minus 2% of optimum moisture.
correct,
Okay. And then to Gene's point, section 340, you start getting into some expansive material and you've got optimum of 0 to +3, huh? But I
No.
don't think you're touching that spec.
I'll go back and make sure we're not touching that, because this is not really intended to address expansive soils. And some of the other specifications related to roadway excavation and drainage excavations for channels, the compaction requirements only come into place when you're over excavating for, like, when you find rock or unsuitable material. So
Gotcha.
it's unlikely to apply on those cases.
Okay.
But no, thank you for the input, George.
You bet.
All right. With that then, like I said, like we're asking on any other case, if you have a chance to review and talk to your staff for some questions, feel free to reach out to myself in this case and any other case on the case sponsor to provide any comments. We'll go ahead and go into case 26-12, revised detail 203, scupper to extend scupper with option of safety rail. Marty, can you kind of
Yes.
give us a background on the case?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this is Marty McDodd. We'd like to propose, updating, 203 to include an optional extension of the scupper and a safety rail. Now, I guess a few years back, we updated our roadway design manual from, based off the guidelines for the planning, design, and operation of pedestrian facilities. And although it's a recommendation in the, based on the, sidewalk for pedestrian, protection from drop off, so for sidewalk. So, and although it's just a recommendation, we actually updated our IDM to reflect that section. And part of it includes the section to say that a scupper that behaves as a sidewalk, we had to include a, which is not in it, but we also included that so that we'll include a safety rail on the back of that. So since then, we've been retrofitting our construction crews, we've been just putting safety rails on the back. So we would like to just do an optional for an extension of the scupper and optional safety rail on the backside. So basically what it's calling for. So see there, and then safety rail in the back, the length and the dimensions based on L&D to see. And it should be noted there is a couple updates. We received updates from our construction team and our structures group. So that it does not reflected in this update at this point. Let's see. So on note 1, we're going to be updating that note 1 because I didn't like that anyways, because I don't want contractors doing any calcs to fill. So for that note, the link D that's shown there, that's the perpendicular distance or the distance between the joints. That is based off the angle. In this case, that table is based off 45 degrees skew for L&D for the length of the safety rail on the backside and the D. And that note 1, which is noted there with just for any other angle, the screw angle should be determined by. We're updating that. So that's not what we want. That's not what I wanted to begin with. So that's going to be per plan. So for what we want to do is say for any other screw angle than 45 degrees, use L&D per plan. So there's no calculations there. I don't know if anybody had a chance to review this, of course, because it's new. So that's what we do right now. So that's what we do on the backside. Still don't like it because it's in the ground on the backside. So this still safety for walking and whatnot, but not for any other purpose. So.
And sorry, Marian, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's I'm fine with that. So, and like I said, we received comments since I updated, gave this to Gordon, which I'm going to be making that and submitting that next month. I don't know if anybody has any questions on this now. I know when I initially presented it back in February, while it was unofficially, that I didn't say optional in that case, but we do want to make an option per agency for the plan. Because I know we talked about the ADA last week. I think it was about liability when it's not required. So it's not required. We couldn't find anything that says, hey, we required to put a safety rail on the backside, except, that guide recommends one if it's greater than 1 foot drop off with a 1-to-1 slope within 2 feet of the backside. So if it's within 2 feet of the sidewalk and it's a 1-to-1 slope, or greater, deeper, it's a 1 foot drop off that is recommended to have that stuff, that one there. So, so we went ahead in our RDM states that we require one when the scupper behaves like functions as a sidewalk. Needless to say.
Okay, so if I interpret this correctly, Marty, this is, when you're saying optional, is the safety rail on the top of the page is not technically required. Is the note applies, it's only when required by the safety plans? Or
By the agency, so per plan, so like MDOT requires that on all of our scupper, that we would include this and include the safety rail on the plan. But if it's not, then the extended scupper and the safety rail is not required. So just that piece sections are not included.
And I guess just one of the things that what's throwing me off.
Okay.
Be an extension of the scupper, right? This is just installing safety rail on that scupper.
Say that one more time.
Oh, that. I guess when you say extend the
right. So
I imagine there's is it only on the cases where there's rail there to begin with, or is it?
No, I got you. I understand what you mean. So yeah, so you're right. So I need to take a look at that road extension, because it's not really extension. So when you place it, you just be adding that section. So you're right. I think extending it's not good road. So
it is the optional installation of the rail on this type of stuff.
Yes.
And the current case does not have the rail. That's the other. So, I'm sorry, the current detail 203 does not have the rail. So this is adding the rail.
This is adding the rail.
Just to make sure. And this is Warren, Marty. Yeah, the way I was glad you brought up that AASHTO requirement, because I know we talked in the ADA working group in terms of what's in PROAG, and PROAG doesn't get into the safety drop-off aspect in the pedestrian access route. They don't mandate anything. So that AASHTO guide that you're showing and that McDOT's adopted, it seemed like that's the most applicable design standard to use, and where they recommend, the way I was interpreting it, reading it, is just says if you based on that cross section above, it says if any of those things occur within 2 feet, then safety rail is recommended. And that's a good guide for us. For when we're doing this, because sometimes our scuppers are set back further than 2 feet. And then still but the engineer can still make the judgment and put it on the plans, use it at whatever situation they feel is appropriate.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just on that specific one that Warren's talking about, we brought that up in the outside right of way too.
Yeah.
And the question comes down to, should we be looking at something like this as an outside right of way standard, not where scuppers are at, where there's a slope adjacent to actually outside the right of way typically. And I think at this point, we've kind of set that as, let's discuss more.
And Peter, there's also building code requirements that get into drop-offs too, that might even be more applicable to that. I can send you that information. And as we were researching, Marty, and we were having some email conversation, we found the building code requirements too.
Yeah. I think when after our ADA meeting, and we talked about what the table that you showed us, Warren, we actually looked at the UBC code, and I think that's the 30 inches is specified in the UBC code. So I think AA might have hallucinated on that. So that's where that came from, I think. So
Yeah.
I think I ended up double checking that one, Marty, but I'll look back because I know there was a bunch of hallucinations in our AI research on that. We had,
Yeah, there is a city of Phoenix standard.
Yeah.
That has 5 feet, and that comes from an old ADOT standard. So there's multiple standards, and maybe we need to, I think that's why we tabled it and said, maybe we need more research and see where we want this to go. The 2 foot, I think, is gonna be a bit more comfortable considering what's out there.
Yeah, you know, and it's a great point, Marty, because I think you've discussed this in the past. Looking at a lot of the different guidance documents and standards that you shared also, Peter, a lot of them do reference, I haven't seen one that says less than a foot that would trigger a requirement, but our current other type of scupper detail, that's having, I don't believe that's a foot drop off.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's the one thing to think about. How big of a drop off do you want? I mean, if it's the same amount as a step or a curb, you don't require it on the other side.
yeah, and I think Ryan, I know it's been discussed before, that ultimately the challenge is the cost and the maintenance of all that facility, right? When we're talking about 6 inches, and if a drop off is only 6 inches here, why are we not adding it everywhere else?
Exactly, or 8 inches, the case may be on some.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, think about that as you go forward with something like this. It's got to be an unusual drop off.
This is Roy, City of Scottsdale. I just, in what we're talking about, and I appreciate Marty sharing all the information and actually educating me on that AASHTO guide for planning and design that he's referencing here in this case. And like Warren, I read it the same way, that if the hazard, and in this case the drop off, is more than or less than 2 feet, that would be when the recommendation would be made to put in the rail. And so what I'm wondering is, in this detail here, if we're already looking at extending out the wing or putting a wing on it, and we're calling out the wing as 1 foot wide, do we just want to put the 2 foot wing on it? And then that rail does become potentially optional, where you've got a 2 foot extension now. So the edge of your scupper is 2 feet off of the edge of your sidewalk, as opposed to the 1 foot that I think is being proposed right now. And I think that's the same as our 206 detail for our scuppers, also got a 1 foot. I just didn't know if it would make sense to, instead of doing the 1 foot extension, to make it 2 feet as the standard, and then you could call out the rail as optional.
Well, right now is the extension only added if there is a rail?
That was the idea. That was the thought.
Yeah, because you would only need the extension to keep your sidewalk width, right? If you
Right.
run rail, you don't need to extend the scup.
I guess I was just reading the AASHTO guide as, then you would have any drop, and I guess this would probably apply more to the 206 versus the 203 that we're talking about here. But if you have any drop within the 2 feet, obviously, I guess if it's greater than 1 foot, would require the rail.
Yeah.
That's how I was interpreting it too, Roy.
And so then that would apply all the time on our 206 scupper, because we've got the concrete lid on it, which is the 5 inch thick, plus the slopes of the sidewalk and the slope of the scupper drainage itself. You always have a height greater than a foot on our 206 detail. That's where I was just thinking that maybe the extension being a 2 foot versus a 1 foot. And I was carrying that over to this as well, but maybe it wouldn't apply for the 203. Yeah, and the 206 you've got up there, where we've got a 1 foot wing or a 12 inch wing. But with the way the scupper is built, you're always going to have a drop off that's greater than a foot if it's built per the standard detail. The 6 inches plus the 5 inches of your slab on the top is going to be 11. Plus you're going to have just your slope difference between your sidewalk and your spillway, or the slope of your scupper is going to be another 2.5 inches or so. I think you end up with like 13 to 14 inches of drop irregardless.
I see your point, Roy. I agree with it. Yeah. This is more in line with that guidance.
And so right now with our 206 detail, and I apologize, I know as a committee, we discussed this earlier, but just with Marty kind of educating me on this AASHTO guide, and I understand it says recommended, but our current 206 detail then is, if we bump that out 1 foot, you could potentially say that a handrail would not necessarily be required.
There's some logic associated with that. I mean, if you have more space there, you have less of a chance of somebody going off the edge within a small distance.
And then the thought on that too is, I think in our 206 detail, we did add a note that basically said, hey, if it is a bicycle facility, then the bump out should be, I think we even said 2 or 2.5 feet.
2.5, yep.
And so, yeah, Peter, to your point, if we bumped it out at least 2 feet, that would also help out for anything that would snag a handlebar or anything else.
That's true. I mean,
So just some thoughts I had.
yeah, the extended 2 feet, you want them to need handballs.
Generally speaking, bicycles belong in a bike lane or
That's true.
or a multi-use path. So that would be our position on that. If it was a multi-use path that included bicycle traffic, then I would agree with you. But this is a sidewalk for pedestrian use. This is a crossing for pedestrian use.
Certainly, but you've got bicycles are allowed on the sidewalk. So we're in areas where you don't have bike lanes or bike routes, and
That's where it would be used as a multi-use path. That is correct.
but I know here in Scottsdale, we've got it on just typical sidewalks. You've got people that are riding bikes on sidewalks.
This sounds like this could be a case all by itself, and so maybe this is something we get together on and talk about how we could, because I'm still concerned about slopes dropping off, slope within 2 foot. You've got a steep slope. We're allowing those without even a talk. And then
Yeah, Glendale's not allowing those. We have standards on,
Well,
10-to-1 or whatever it is.
that's what I think we need to look at, maybe as was done on other one. Let's look at all the different standards, see if we can get the uniform approach for both drop-offs. When would you need protection? When wouldn't you? And because I think this case has its own merits. But I think
I agree. I mean, obviously we need to assemble everything, and that's what we kind of started to go down that path. And I think that would make sense, and then see how to apply it, and because it might affect other details as well.
Yeah, it's drop-offs, it's slopes. What would this overall encompassing one be requiring, and who's got stuff on it, and how would we approach that?
Right. Even head walls. I know we've talked about rails on head walls too. It's, certain drop-offs there.
Yeah, guys, on a side comment, I've noticed on a commercial, now that's outside the right of way, but on a lot of commercial developments, they like to use these steel plated scuppers a lot. And there's not necessarily a slope drop off. They just use it to, convey water, say from off a roof or something, and the sidewalk. And they never put handrail, or you rarely see handrail. But I see a lot of these engineers, design engineers, referencing this mag spec, to build the 203 type style scupper. And they rarely call out handrail, but it's interesting. At least you don't see the handrail. I don't know if they're supposed to be installing them or what, because it's on site private, but just keep that in mind. that a lot of the private developers use this detail for on-site stuff. So.
No, you're right, Jim, and I think on a lot of those applications is, I mean, the drop off is the same on the front side as it is on the back side. I don't know, there's a, again, clear distinction as to why you would just do it on one side, not the other.
Yeah.
But I like your idea, Peter, of to try to establish a consistent approach to where we're adding more safety rail.
And not making it to where it's something that's so outrageous in terms of cost to the agencies, cost to everybody, that it's, we don't want to come up with a solution looking for a problem.
And that's the other thing we kind of talked about briefly in the working group is if we have something in MAG that the agency details don't have, then that might put us at risk too, for whatever reason. So it'd be nice to have something we all agree to or can maybe apply to our own agency details once we get there too.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point, Warren. If it's there, they're gonna ask why we didn't adopt.
Yeah. And that was Roy's idea. Thank you, Roy.
But I like Roy's idea on this one in particular. If that goes 2 feet out, you don't need the rail if it's less than 2 feet. And the drop off is a certain amount, you would use a rail. I don't, optional bothers me. How do you?
Who
decide-
determines that?
Who determines optional? It should be, if this happens, then that. So it seems like it should be, if the drop is so big and it's more than, and less than 2 feet, then you would use a handrail. And then Roy's idea of extending it out to where you, well, I mean, just the whole idea, you just extend it out, put it on pad.
Okay. Marty, I think we always say that cases can grow legs, but I think this one's gonna become a spider.
Okay.
No, thanks. I mean, it's a good discussion to have. It is just a loaded case. But with that, I mean, I don't know. I know you did some research, Peter, and it's been discussed both at the ADA working group and the outside of right-of-way group. Where's your opinion? Should it stay like that, or should we kind of?
I think we
focus
need
on
kind of,
more
I like that idea. I think it was proposed having a joint committee discussion or a joint working group. We can just set up a special meeting just to talk and focus on something like this.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have an objection. Do you have an objection to that, Warren? I'm
No,
not,
not at all. No.
I don't know that it'll be something that we're gonna be able to get to this
Yeah.
year. But maybe during the off months, have a special session, just talk about safety rail.
We can at least maybe assemble some research and share it amongst through an email, Peter. Kind of get our minds around it a little bit.
Okay. Thank you, Marty. More conversations on this case.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Case 26-13, revision to section 750. Jim, I believe this is your case. Can you give us a brief introduction to it?
Yeah, I will. So you can see unfortunately, I didn't have time to do a introduction memo, but it's pretty straightforward. So again, in MAG, we get these occasional, we got to, update our MAG spec to meet the current national standards that are out there. And when some of the industry reps brought this to our attention about the current AWWA C104, basically allows for an optional seal coat, or no seal coat for cement mortar lining on ductile iron pipe. I guess that goes back to 1995, but back in the day when they were doing this, the seal coat, in order to cure it, they had to use this a lining for it. But current process, to now today's standards, the application of the cement mortar lining, it's improved obviously with everything else, and there's industry says there's no longer a need to line and cure the pipe, through the old methods, and So what AWWA C104 did is make it optional because it's really not necessary anymore with today's manufacturing technology. Another reason they kind of pushed to eliminate it is the old curing would, used volatile organic compounds or VOCs, and so obviously the industry is trying to get away from that, especially because it's water pipe, for domestic use. So by eliminating the requirement or not requiring it, it reduces the VOC footprint. So that's what the manufacturers is pointing out. And again, just a simple fact that, to bring mag spec in alignment with the AWWA C104, which offers it as an option. And we're currently mag, as you see there, says it just says with a seal coat. So all we want to do is just say an optional seal coat, and that is supposed to bring us into compliance with the AWWA C104. Same thing below with the coal tar coated stuff. So it's just updating our spec to come in align with the current AWWA national standards. So pretty straightforward.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll quickly elaborate on Jim's comment there. Is the reason why it's optional and not eliminated completely. Some manufacturing facilities have not moved into the modern world with that new curing system. So they're still, or they want to do it as an extra step. So that's why we left it as optional. That's another reason why we left it as optional, and that was coming directly from the pipe manufacturing company that had suggested a different company, not the one that was pushing the case, but another pipe manufacturer said it would be better fit, more appropriate to leave it as optional.
And just because I'm curious and I don't know enough about it, and so is this seal coat that is applied on the ductile iron pipe prior to the mortar line?
No, it's to seal the mortar.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's to help it cure. It was to help cure it.
Instead of putting it in a cure room.
Do you see a visible difference in the pipe itself when it gets delivered?
I don't know if I've ever paid attention to that.
I just don't know if it's different, if it comes out a different color, if it has different band color on the outside of the pipe to differentiate it, or?
I did hear rumors that I cannot verify that without the seal coat, people complained of discolored water, but I can't verify those claims.
Would optional be appropriate if it's recommended by the manufacturer or something like that, rather than just putting it in as optional?
It's got to be optional depending on the construction, the fabrication method, depending on that plant and how they're fabricating and how they're casting their pipe and casting their mortar. If they're not curing it in the way I understand it now, if they're not curing it in these special cure procedures and ways, then they would have the option to use the seal coat.
I think to Alex's point, maybe just made me think, when you say optional, then who's making the decision whether or not it's needed?
Well, it would be the publication, the C104. Because that optional, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but that optional is directly out of the C104.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance. I wanted to print it out and read it for myself. What it actually the verbiage is, and I might look to discuss that more at the working group. As I read into this more, it's like, well, I'd like to know more about the processes. I mean, why does a new process, not need the curing compound or whatever they put on it? So I understand that they're trying to accommodate, different manufacturers, but again, what if the engineer record wants it for some reason? I don't know why, because to me, it's just the manufacturer has to cure this cement mortar lining. And there's two methods. I guess there's an older and a newer method, and all that 104 allows is they can use both. So it's kind of up to the individual manufacturer and their process which they need to use. So,
well, at that point, wouldn't you wouldn't you just change the sentence to pipe shall be cement mortar lined in accordance with?
Yeah.
And just leave that whole segment out.
You know, if AWWA already covers it, it's probably better, just because it probably leaves some more ambiguous and
Let's look at,
disagreement, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think Jim and I, we'll look at that again in the working group. I'll bring one of the pipe manufacturers. We'll have at least 2 pipe manufacturers in there in that working group to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, I know when you use the word optional now, somebody's got to make a decision. Well, and do we need it or not? And so I know it had some confusion. So that's kind of what I thought, you know, after thinking about this some more. Is like, well, if it already references 104, then what's the problem? You know?
And to Jim's defense, this is not his case. This was brought by a pipe manufacturer, an actual ductile iron pipe manufacturer. So we'll do a little digging on that in the next working group. And
yeah.
Back.
All right.
That's all I had.
Thank you for keeping us current. Does anybody else have a question for Jim on this case? If not, we'll move on right along to the next one. Case 26-14, revised adjustment rings on details 420 and 422 and 522. Gene, this is your case.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the reinforcement notes are outdated. How I stumbled across this is during submittal review. Something caught my eye, and it was the 3000 PSI compressive strength that caught my eye, and I thought it was odd because it's in a roadway like that. So I started doing a little digging, and then what I found is that the notes are completely outdated, no longer comply with the current requirements that are listed in ASTM C478. So I'm recommending to the committee that we modify these details and change them to align with that reinforcement practice. And that'll include some corrections to 220-1, which would remove the language adjustment. I'm sorry, let me back up. It would be remove ASTM C478 except as modified herein, because what was happening was we were showing the mag detail was showing the actual reinforcement inside the illustration of the detail. So we'd remove that section and we would replace it to read with section 742, which 742 clearly calls out the C478. So it clearly calls out the reinforcement as far as the references for the reinforcement. I would really encourage everybody to fact check that and go back and just double check that. The detail 422-1 also update that cross section for the adjustment ring detail in the top left corner there by removing the reinforcement schematic again, and the note for the number 2 hoops. There was all kinds of stuff in there. Number 2 hoops, 4-inch ring tied with number 4 AS and W gauge wire. There's all kinds of stuff in there. So we'd remove all that. And the only reason why that's in red is because I wasn't sure if we should reference where that little leg came up and that little arrow came over to the side on the top left corner. That's where all the reference to the hog rings or the ring tied and the gauge wire and everything was at, where really we need to be referencing the C478. So either I can put it there or I can drop it over into the notes as a note 5, which kind of prefer the note 5, but we can discuss that once I get through some of these changes that I'm putting out there for the group. Also, I adjusted the illustration for the step down because it was showing that there was a step down in that frame or in that adjustment ring. So it wasn't perfectly level all the way across, which isn't consistent with what's being supplied. What else? Notes type A on type A, add note reinforcement down there. Detail 522 note at the top right corner, we'll go ahead and suggesting that we add to note 1 also and section 742 in that language there for note 1. Eliminate note 4 unless otherwise shown on plans. Use 2.5-inch precast adjusting rings on improved streets, and you use 4 instead of using 2 on improved street, then you use 4 in unimproved streets. I don't know what the difference is, why that's not the practice that is being suggested to me by industry, which I would agree with them 100%. We should just keep it the same all the way across, whether it's in the street or out of the street. But
Agreed.
I heard an agree in there.
Yeah. Otherwise, someone's gonna have to try to figure out what's the difference, right?
Yeah.
No, I think I thought for some reason was that you put more rings on an improved ring in street, so that way when you ever come
And
actually
lower it.
lower it, you don't have to take out cone.
The problem is though, when you get into flat top scenarios, you get into storm drain scenarios, we've all run into it. You know, Litchfield and Northern Parkway, we ran into it. You're at grade with that flat top because it's so flat, you know?
Yeah, there's no room for rings.
There is no room for rings. So something to consider. Of course, this is just suggestions at this point. Hopefully all the committee members will help give feedback on it. Now, also do some renumbering in note 5, change it to note 4, and then add the minimum class of concrete. That should be 4,000 PSI, period. I don't know why it was MAG AA, but it clearly calls out in the ASTM to be 4,000 PSI. That's what really flagged it for me was, wow, I don't see how we're building this per how we're being supplied and it's in compliance with the detail. So, and it didn't make sense to me why it was only 3,500 PSI. It should have been 4,000, and that's indeed what the ASTM lists is 4,000.
The only thing on this detail is that 4,000 also applied to the cone and riser section?
It's got, so it has its own section, the cone and riser. Yeah, it has its own structural section. So this is just for the adjustment rings.
Because the note seems to apply to the whole detail, which is the manhole shaft. So we're just worried about the rings.
That's correct. That's correct. But there is a section in MAG, which I didn't tie to this, but there is a section specific for the cone and the barrel. What else? Detail 522, cross-section reinforced concrete adjustment ring. Same thing. The hoops, remove the elimination of the hoops, the ties, the 8-gauge, because all that, none of that is consistent with what's in the ASTM C7 or 478. Again, adjust the inner step down to remain the same as the outer section, cross section of the illustration there, and adjust the measurements to reflect the removal of the step down. It's the other thing I did. Eliminate the reinforcement illustration. That's pretty much all the items. And then remove reference to the thickness of 2.5-inch and 6-inch and replace with varies with the language as varies, which is very consistent with 422-1, that distance varies. Now, if we want to keep more adjustment rings out there in the field for that reason, for that structural reason of pulling out 5 inches of asphalt or 6 inches of asphalt and having that minimum, then yeah, we need to have that conversation for sure. Because that is a valid point. Either that or those grinders will be running right over the cone.
Just so quick question, the the way the adjustment rings show, as you change the word varies, 422.1 detail and 522 detail match exactly. There is no difference now.
Right.
Do you want to have the same detail two places or just have it one and reference back to it?
Well, one's for storm drain, one's for
Yeah.
manhole.
Okay, just see the same thing in two places, as long as they always get changed simultaneously if anything changes.
You do. It started off with just the 422-1, but then I started chasing it and I found it in other places.
Yeah. I just,
To your point.
yeah, that being, when you put it in more than one place, you gotta always remember to change it.
Yeah, at least we don't have to do 422-2 because those are polypropylene or
Yeah,
the other
just
alternative
observation.
material, yeah.
Another small observation I had was when you're revising note 1 on there, you can take out the periods on ASTM. We don't normally have that
Where is that? On which?
on note 1.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's how it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the old details showed it that way, but whenever I see that, I try and fix it.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed that in other places as well, so I wasn't sure which way it should have been. Got it. So Mr. Chair, I encourage committee members to take a look at it, and I think we ought to stay really in tune with what you had mentioned about the overlay, or not overlay, the reconstructs that we may do out in the roadway and how that affects, any adjustments, so.
All right. Any questions for Gene on this case? Thanks, Gene, for introducing the case. All right, if not, please take some time over the next month to review the case. We'll go on to case 26-15. Revisions to section 710, 711, 717, and 321 in relations to asphalt, concrete, mixed designs and paving. This is my case, so there is a brief introduction memo on the agenda packet, but this case rises up from a recent session workshop that was hosted by the ASU Consortium, and where we had Dr. Osan give a presentation a couple of months ago. There was an industry meeting to discuss improving our mix designs for our conventional non-polymer asphalt mix designs to try to make sure most municipalities come to a unified mix design, and then also look into the mix design methodology that is being used, the binder grade that is being used to address our cracking issues that we see on our roads, to come up to a more current and what would be the best mix design specification to use nowadays. So there were 3 different teams that kind of got put together to review binder selection, mix design specifications, and I believe the other one was aggregate criteria. So this changes to the specifications are the result of the aggregate efforts, and I think Alex, because he's the one that participated in a couple of those working groups, and anybody else that participated within it. Some of the major highlights and changes is that under section 10, the Marshall mix design methodology to develop a mix design is now being removed, and everything is being based on a gyratory mix design. The other major change is transitioning from our PG 7010 grade to a 70-16 grade for conventional mixes, and a PG 6422 when the mix design uses RAP. And then one of the bigger changes that is being proposed here is to establish that the use of a 3/4 inch mix for base roads only, and surface mixes be 1/2 inch only. And I apologize if I'm bouncing back and forth, but there's a lot of changes to cover. The use of conventional non-polymer asphalts on residential streets, but on collectors and majors, specify that the mix design to be used has to be a polymer mix. That in itself, there's a lot of changes. I don't know, Alex, if you want to help me out in case I'm missing something of the big highlights.
No, I think you hit the highlights very well. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. I think the goal was we understand polymer modified binders are the superior performing binders, but we also wanted to provide some better and best, or some good and better opportunities than what's currently out there. Additionally, going through this, and I really appreciate the City of Phoenix and Parnean's help as well, tried to be very inclusive of a lot of what agencies already had in their addendums, including certain things with gradation, volumetric properties, those other design things, and tried to be extremely inclusive there to make this palatable to all agencies as well.
Yes, thank you for that. And I believe something that is new on section 710 related to mix design is now their use of the reference to a fine coarse and a coarse gradation bands. And I believe that's also the intent for being inclusive of other agencies and how they're using their mix design designations.
Yeah, there's fine graded and coarse graded. The gyration levels were decreased from the original MAG 710 from 100 gyrations down to 75 for higher traffic applications and 50 gyrations for lower traffic applications. As well as, like we said, some of the other coarse and fine graded mixes. So regardless of where you're placing that material, even if it's going to be used in a parking lot, for instance, there are options available for various applications from the lowest to highest traffic levels.
And for some of the more materials inclined members that are here, the mix design specifications do aim to ultimately achieve more effective binder. There's changes to the specifications that are within the document that you'll see that is the goal, and that also the main driver for reducing the number of gyrations. So
correct.
I know there's a number of agencies and members that have reviewed this, but we definitely appreciate it. For those agencies that have staff that review or deal with material items, if they can also take the time to review this. Again, the underlying goal of this is to hopefully all achieve or come to a consensus of mix design that ultimately results in less mixes out there.
Yeah, industries, I think, primary concern with this process is ensuring uniform adoption. If we're looking at adding grades, if it's not usable for everybody, then that becomes a major logistical challenge, adding additional grades of binder.
Yes, a little bit more on that topic, Alex. I think most plants can handle 3 to 4 binder grades.
Most plants have 1 to 3 tanks locally, and we're already juggling between ADOT and MAG, as well as other municipalities, up to 7 different grades of binder regularly.
So the more, and again, we're all in the same climate, so there's not that much temperature variation between Vistancia and East Gilbert. So
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, every municipality likes their own flavored brownie.
That's right. I remember when Glendale went to Sharp's Mix.
Yep.
And everybody was, but it doesn't look smooth. You know, it looks coarse. You put this down and now we don't like it.
Well, to
I
that
was in
point-
that first barrage of all that.
Oh, yeah. And to that point, when I first initially saw the removal of Marshall mixes, I thought to myself, all the residential neighborhoods, those kids are not going to want to ride their skateboards. It's going to be rough.
Well, it's true.
But
when you
that's not
pave
the
it
case, correct?
Valley.
No, while these are all compacted in a gyratory, that's why we included the fine graded option.
Yeah.
So it will look more like the traditional Marshall mix, but be that super paved mix.
Just using the Marshall.
It'll look better.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
nice. Temporary surface.
Mr. Chair, Alex, just wanted to say thank you. I'm glad to see this get to the finish line. I know this was a lot of work to put together, so thank you.
there is, and I will say, I mean, I just briefly cover the highlights, Warren. There is a lot of changes within it. So yeah, if you have staff that can help review this.
We will. Yeah, I know we definitely, spoke up and supported this effort. So I know there sounds like maybe a few modifications, but yeah, we'll definitely review it.
Yeah, and as a theme, right, as a region overall, with last year adoption of or this year's adoption of the polymer modified asphalt being very close to EVAC, and now these changes, I think, is providing uniformity across the agencies here in the valley. So,
right.
Yeah, and this is Hunter Garrison. Just to speak on behalf of the testing labs, in all of my past experience, they will definitely appreciate the uniformity here, and just I think overall the testing you'll see better and more uniform results come across. So just thought I'd add that in.
Mr. Chair, what do you see as the timeline that you're looking for on this case?
as with any case, it just depends on the input, right?
Okay.
The input that we get and whether we use sweet chocolate chips or
Or double chocolate.
yes.
Okay.
So it really depends. So. All right, George, were you gonna try to say something? All right. Anybody else has any comment or question?
This is Gordon. I just want to remind members that if they want to review this case or send it to other people specifically, you can always download just this case from the cases under consideration page and forward that link or forward the PDF to them. It includes both a clean and a red line version.
All right. We'll go into the outside of right-of-way cases. 26-A, Peter, new riprap spillway details.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, in the working group meeting we had a few weeks ago, we were talking about this in relation to the potential changes for Section 220, that there is potential impacts on this. I think though what we resolved was, and there's no new stuff today, but I just want to kind of update everybody. What we've decided on would be a best course of action is to set up a working group within the working group, to a sub-working group, if you want to call it that, to look more detail and study more of any changes to 220, realizing that's really talking about a larger section of riprap used for multiple purposes. Within this, we thought, and I think the general consensus was, we can carry this case forward still. And 220, whatever it gets changed to later on, if it gets changed to later on, would maybe require a minor change to these, saying to reference back to 220 for tolerances or something like that. So I didn't propose anything new here. What I will do is clean this version up, assuming that it can now move forward by itself. So I think that was the major discussion, that we don't need to really rely on 220 to go ahead and get riprap spillways in. It's a smaller piece. It's not going to be affected the existing 220. It's fine with the spillways as they are. So in that, I'm also going to ask for, and we talked about it with Brian, to go ahead and get volunteers for a sub-working group to be involved with this process. And I think we had a couple volunteers. And Brian, you were going to look toward getting somebody in industry to, is Brian still, Brian's on the call, isn't he? Never sure. Yeah, Brian, you're still there. You were going to look toward getting a representative from industry to educate us for 220. It's separate from this one, but this is just a good opportunity to go ahead and ask people who would want to be involved with the review of the 220 sections. It's not going to happen this year, but we do want to get a group together so we start talking through this year. So first of next year, we can work it out. In this case, we'll just move forward. I'll provide something for next month But I don't want to leave this meeting without bringing that up. We do need volunteers for 220. So think about it. Silence happens. Think about that and please get word to Gordon, probably be the best way on who'd like to be involved. Again, we have a couple, Wayne Colbank is already volunteered to be on it on the next side. But we do definitely need contractors and suppliers on this to establish reality for 220.
Peter, you can count me in. This is George at Rummel.
George, okay.
Yes, and just to add to Peter, if it's not the member agency that's here at the meeting, but if you know somebody in your organization or in industry that can provide some valuable input, definitely worth reaching
Potentially
out.
have one of my guys participate as well.
Very good. Yeah, just
Not from the supplier perspective.
yeah, we do need that. So we're looking one at realistic materials and realistic placement methods and realistic testing of that. And we're going to have some kind of panel testing. What would be the scope and size of the project that would be applicable to? And also really a good education and make sure the section deals with if there's more than one way that grouted riprap, and primarily it's the grouted riprap that's the issue. More than one way grouted riprap is placed. We've seen where you place the grout, then push the riprap into it. Then there's the opposite side where riprap's placed and grout is spread and then cleaned up. We need to find out, is that what happens in agencies in Maricopa County? And make sure that 220 reflects how the placement is actually being done. And if tolerances are needed, how would we approach that? So I want to take some time to get that worked out. I'll go ahead and get this one cleaned up. I know we're running long today, so I don't want to drone on this one too long. We'll just move on. If acceptable, we'll get this one to you next time.
All right, any questions for Peter? All right, if not, we'll move on to the next case, 26B, changes to the multiple barrel detention backfill details for CMP retention. And I apologize, Peter, because I wasn't able to attend the last working group, but I believe there was a comment that was made in relations to one of the notes on this particular detail. And I think, yes, I think it was aimed towards kind of clarifying that even though the detail is drawn with a vertical trench wall,
Yes.
the installation does not necessarily need to follow a vertical trench box installation. It can be a slope.
Yeah, Brian brought this up during the meeting. It's the words, it says undisturbed trench wall and showing a vertical side.
Yes.
Being interpreted as being it had to be a vertical side. So the idea was getting language that would identify that as the shape, basically the shape of the wall is dependent on the conditions.
Yeah.
So I think Gordon had worked up some language.
Yeah, Gordon sent up a draft language, and as I was reviewing it, I was trying to what I was trying to aim is to be as consistent as possible with our current details. I wasn't able to find it anywhere in our normal pipe backfill details where we specify that the excavation can be sloped back or can be multiple, but because this particular version already called out the trench wall, I'll try to come up with an alternate version to try to satisfy the concern, and this is the language I came up with.
Okay.
Again, just I went back to the 601 spec and kind of the language that uses in relation to trench safety.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where I borrow.
Yeah, it was just to incorporate the fact that often it's not a vertical sidewall.
Correct.
And we did verify with the manufacturers during the meeting or at the meeting that a vertical sidewall is generally not required for design. It's a site condition. So anything that recognizes there's a site condition that has to be dealt with, that was the idea.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we should say undisturbed soil shall be shored, braced, or sloped as required. Undisturbed soil. To be, instead of shall, I don't want to put that. Undisturbed soil to be shored, braced, or sloped as needed.
The way it's written, there's a period there that you can't see, right? It says,
Oh, yeah, I can't.
it calls out undisturbed soil and then
Oh,
shore
okay.
brace or slope excavation as
Okay,
needed.
you're saying that then.
Yes.
Yes, my eyesight's bad enough. Okay, I think, Brian, I think that's what you were trying to get to. I think that meets the intent of what was being discussed.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to go into too much detail because it's just a note
No,
on the
no.
details.
It
So
was just to make sure that there was an understanding it did not have to be a vertical sidewall. Works for me. I'd say we're good to go with it.
all right. Does anybody else have any questions on this particular case?
You're talking about the vertical edges on the diagram itself.
Yes.
Correct, yes.
Could you just slope one side of the diagram?
We talked about doing that and we were trying to get the case through right now.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
is more consistent with what's in the existing mag, if I remember right.
Yeah, no,
The
so
vendors have pointed that out too.
I think because some vendor details do show one side being
Sidewalk,
sloped,
one side
one
the
side being
other.
vertical. So it just depends, right? It just,
Yeah, yeah. That, I think that was the whole idea here, just to identify that it's material dependent.
but with that, I know this was for possible action, but just because we made this last minute change, we can probably push it to next month. I'll make the updates and share it with the rest of the team. Peter, I know there's a lot of people that wanna use the CAD files as the basis for other type of installations.
Yes, exactly. That was the intent, to get something through so we can move forward with the other cases for next year.
But if nobody has a comment on this language, if for some reason you do, as you're reviewing the cases over the next few weeks, let us know. But if not, we'll use this as a template for other cases, and we can take a vote on next month meeting, Gordon.
Yeah, as soon as we can get this one through, we're gonna be pushing the other ones to go. And obviously, we're not gonna get them in this year, but I think the proponents of those would like to get those ready to go. So January, we're popping them in next year.
Okay. Any last minute comments on this or questions? All right, we'll move on to the working group reports. And I'll try to be mindful of the time. Jim, can you just give us a brief update on the Water and Sewer Working Group? Is Jim still around?
Is Jim muted?
Yeah, here, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I got, looking for something here. So, yes, so we met, our Water and Sewer Working Group met on, June 16th. But, I'm not gonna go into detail. We covered basically a lot of the cases that we talked about today. We did have a little discussion on, City of Phoenix is updating their supplements, and Rob Duval from City of Phoenix suggested about, I guess Phoenix is they don't allow water consolidation. And I know MAG 601.4.7 still allows water consolidation mainly by jetting. And we had a little discussion on that. I'd like people to think about that and kind of see it as their agencies, as you guys still actively using that. From our discussion, I don't know if we're ready to take it out of MAG completely, but it does seem like it's not used much anymore. So, maybe talk about that internally. If that's something down the road we want to look at taking out. What else? Had a little discussion on, on sewer, when you review sewer videos, we've noticed in Avondale, sometimes when we're looking at these videos, the joints sometimes look questionable, and sometimes there's too much of a gap that we question. So we got looking into the industry standard on that, and how much is too much of a gap? And the question is the pipe being inserted far enough, or is it too far? And everybody, seems like the majority of the stuff is it's butting right up against the inside of the bell, and apparently, according to industry standard, that might be too far. So one thing we're discovering is maybe a lot of this pipe that is being installed, and I'm mainly talking about PVC sewer, and maybe it's being installed incorrectly according to the manufacturers where we're pushing the pipe in too far. And so again, we had discussion about, more, lines on the pipe to determine. So, and then, the other thing is it a problem? Because if you pass the low pressure air test, is it good? So I don't know, something to think about. I don't know if it needs an addition, any, changes to the spec, but it's something to, again, always touch base with what the industry's doing and, are we on track with that? So, and other than that, our next meeting will be, July 21st, 1:30 on, MS Teams. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jim. Outside right away working group, Peter, anything outside of the two cases?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we already talked about the two cases. We had the meeting on the 21st. It's important that we get that case, identify the 226B done, so we can use that as the template, because we've got lined up the precast and we're looking at the future chambered ones and all. So we're trying to get the same format ready to go. So as soon as that's gone, I think we're going to see the vendors starting to work on those. Our goal is next year to have at least 2, if not 3 new detention tank options. We talked about the riprap. We were forming a sub-working group for that. So we've covered that already. We're not going to go ahead and delay 26A. We're just going to keep moving forward with that. Obviously, we talked about the safety rail on side slopes already, and hoping we could get something working with other groups. Mentioned already, the geosynthetics is going to be revised next year. And I now feel like we're lagging behind on agency supplement reductions because everybody else is working on them now. So that's, we need to look at those also. So our next meeting, everybody's gracious enough to push it to July 30th because I'm traveling on both the next 2 Thursdays that we normally have the meeting. So that's what's going on.
All right, thank you, Peter. Materials working group, Alex?
Thank you. The majority of our conversation was regarding the amendments to 710, and the discussion regarding that. We did, briefly, go over some of the City of Phoenix, supplements potentially included in the MAG. Rob presented on those. Really 710 is the primary push that we have there. And then I did know that we were considering if that was even a possibility to get completed this season. So. Our next meeting is on July 15th. We did kind of change the date so we could be prepared for the next meeting and any comments that the group did have on that case. Hunter, did you have anything else?
Nope, that was it. Great work with all that. Yeah, it's been a good year with all that stuff for asphalt. So
Yeah, great year. Thank you, guys.
All right,
thank you. Thank you for your time, Chairman.
thanks, Alex, and thanks, Hunter. ADA working group, Warren?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a couple highlights for the sake of time. I did share that there is the 2026 National ADA Symposium that's happening in North, I think it's North Scottsdale, July 19th through the 22nd. Looks like a few breakout sessions regarding PROAG, so we might hear some more details in terms of status and adoptions. So hope to hear more maybe later in July. Other than that, we, a lot of these items on here are still work in progress. We talked a lot about the sign detail and the scupper detail, obviously, but the other items we're still kind of working through, and need some more discussion on. So the next meeting, July 16th at 2:30. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Warren. Moving down the agenda, potential cases for 2027. If you didn't hear earlier, today was the last day to introduce any new case or anything else that will be coming up as a new case is gonna have to go into 2027. I think that the list is in front of us. This is some of the stuff that's being worked on the working groups. If anybody wants some further discussions, again, I think it's encouraged to start at the working group level and then bring it up to the main MAC committee. Staff report. Gordon, is there, I think we have an item here.
Due to the length of the meeting, that can wait until we have less agenda items.
Okay. General discussion, I think, thank you, Warren, for giving us a heads up on that symposium that is happening in Scottsdale. Anybody else wants to share anything going on this month in relation to general discussion? Future agenda items, again, that will have to be tabled to 2027. Well, that's cases, right? Agenda items. I think presentations or anything sort of that we might want to wait till the next future year so we can focus on the case workload that we have. But if there's something pressing, feel free to reach out. Any comments from the committee or anything else before we call this this meeting? If not, meeting adjourned. I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Around, Paul.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.